Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Crime Driven Podcast. I'm your host, Gigi. Thanks for joining us today. Today we have a real twisted, crazy, and complicated story for you. It's going to leave you a little confused in some parts. Believe me, trust me, I was too. And you might have to go back and rewind a little bit, but I'll try to do the best I can to keep everything straight and untwist this really crazy case for you. Today, our episode is going to be about the murder of Amanda Douglas and Jennifer Sudar-Sanders from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Our source materials for this episode are going to be an episode of The First 48, and this episode is a season 21, episode 1. Tulsa World News, an episode of ID's See No Evil called The Golden Pontiac, News on 6 Tulsa, the Wichita Eagle, Tulsa World, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, Northern District of Oklahoma. It was around 9:20 in the morning on Wednesday, November 26, 2014, a cool sunny morning the day before Thanksgiving, when several calls were made to 911. The callers reported someone had just been shot in the parking lot. In the parking lot of Bristol Park Apartments on the east side of Tulsa. Police rushed over to the apartment complex to find a vehicle that looked to have been shot up. The back window of the car was shattered, and then they saw that not one, but two people had been shot. When EMTs arrived, what they saw was a horrific scene. The first person, a female, was in the driver's side of the vehicle, in bad shape, but still alive. The other, who was also a female, was laying on the ground behind the car, dead. It looked like they were ambushed as they were leaving the house to start their day. Amanda Douglas and Jennifer Sudar were shot multiple times while getting into a vehicle parked in front of the apartment they lived in. According to an episode of The First 48, Amanda was shot once in the head, once in the neck, and once in the chest. While detectives started their investigation into Amanda's murder, Jennifer, the woman in the driver's seat, barely hanging on, was rushed to the hospital. Doctors and hospital staff did everything they could to save her, but unfortunately, less than an hour later, Jennifer succumbed to her injuries and was pronounced dead. 26-year-old Amanda Marie Drywater Douglas was born on May 29, 1988 in Muskogee, Oklahoma, to Michael and Angela. Amanda was their fourth child of 8. They had 4 boys and 4 girls. Amanda was the youngest girl. Amanda was also a mom. She had 2 daughters, Destiny 12 and Adriana 11 months, who she shared with her current husband Larry. She was described as having a contagious personality and was always smiling. Jennifer Lynn Sudar was 37 years old when she was shot and killed. She was born on June 29, 1977 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Jennifer didn't have any kids of her own, but she more than adored her nieces and nephews. She enjoyed spending time with family and friends whenever she could. Jennifer also liked being outdoors and doing outdoor activities or playing softball, and she loved and treasured her dogs, Molly and Princess. Witnesses gathered and reported hearing gunshots and seeing a tall, late 20-something black man flee in a car. One witness was able to give the police a description of the car, a gold Pontiac Grand Prix with an Oklahoma license plate, and one of them were able to get the license plate number in all the commotion. Robbery did not seem to be a motive in the case since detectives did not believe anything was stolen from the 2 women. The way the witnesses described the scene, the way the getaway car was described as being parked, and the way the suspect went straight to the women to shoot at them made detectives feel like the murder was planned. A neighbor suggested police should look into Amanda's husband since she knew there was issues in the relationship and described the husband as a bad man. The police were eager to catch whoever did this to Jennifer and Amanda. The 2 women had previously worked together and immediately became great friends. Despite their age difference, Jennifer was like a big sister to Amanda and was trying to help her get back on her feet. Police collected all the evidence they could at the scene, which included surveillance video from the apartment complex, which they did not actually have at the moment, but they were waiting for it to be downloaded and sent to them. While they waited, they were able to gain entry into Jennifer's apartment. It was a small apartment with one bedroom. There was no signs of struggle, and the apartment was clean besides several ashtrays and the smell of cigarettes. They also had each witness go to the station to give their statements. The two main witnesses, who also were the 911 callers, both said that they did not see the gold Pontiac arrive at the complex, but they did see it flee after the shooting. With little to go on so far, detectives did find something. After investigating the gold Pontiac and running the license plate number, they found out it was a stolen vehicle. The car had been stolen the day before the murders. At this point in the investigation, everyone in the women's lives were suspects, and police started contacting friends and family looking into the two women and their lives. Detectives discovered that there was some activity on both Jennifer and Amanda's record, mostly just petty crimes and stuff that was drug-related, but it seemed both women were clean at the time, and that was not an issue that had anything to do with the murders. What detectives found was that Jennifer was the actual tenant of the apartment, and Amanda had just recently started staying there because of a domestic situation with her husband, 41-year-old Larry Douglas, that occurred recently. The situation included Amanda filing a protective order, hiring a lawyer, and seeking custody of the daughter she shared with her husband Larry. The two had just recently been to court once already. You see, at this point in time, Larry had gained custody of their daughter. This was only because during the separation, Amanda had been arrested on a warrant and spent some days in jail. Amanda's plan was to reissue charges against Larry for a domestic incident and have him arrested, then get custody of the baby back to her. Detectives were somewhat familiar with Larry and some of his past run-ins with law enforcement. As far as Jennifer was concerned, they really couldn't find anything that would make her a target. She was said to have been everyone's best friend and would help anyone she could. The police also wanted to trace Amanda and Jennifer's movements from the night before they died. Around 7 p.m. the previous night, they went to the Hard Rock Casino in Tulsa. Detectives were able to obtain the surveillance footage from the casino. In the footage, they saw both women playing slots, drinking, and talking to other people. Amanda was seen talking to an older man and even went to the buffet with him. However, the man was seen leaving the casino by himself soon after. Detectives were not convinced that the murders had anything to do with the woman being at the casino the night before. A few days later, a tip came in about Jennifer. A friend of hers said that Jennifer had money issues and was behind on her rent, so she was looking for ways to make some quick money. This friend also said Jennifer was involved in a money laundering scheme that could help her with her financial situation. Someone Jennifer knew asked her to launder $10,000 by playing the money at the casino and winning it back, and possibly a little extra as a way to earn money for herself. But she lost a sizable chunk of that money that night at the casino. The friend thought maybe because Jennifer lost so much of the money, that someone was after her for payback, and Amanda was just an innocent bystander. The police eventually ruled this out as a theory after making several phone calls about the money laundering scheme. So at this point, detectives were also leaning back towards the theory that Jennifer may not have been the intended target at all and may have just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The police turned back to Amanda as being the intended target. Amanda had been having issues with her husband, Larry Douglas. Amanda's sister said that Larry started out being a nice person when they first got married, but lately, Larry was mean and abusive. They had also gone to court on the Monday before the murder for a child custody case. Amanda had left Larry and was planning to take her kids with her. Larry was allegedly a well-known drug dealer, and she wanted the kids out of harm's way. The police ran Larry through the system. He had a lengthy record for sure, but he did not match the description of the shooter that the witnesses saw at the apartment complex on the day of the murder. However, Larry was not ruled out. They wanted to speak with him. It took a while to get a hold of Larry. He seemed to have been avoiding them. The police decided to question one of Larry's ex-wives in the meantime, since Larry himself was conveniently out of town at the time. They asked her if Larry was violent or abusive, and she said that, quote, Larry would not be angry enough to murder someone. Now, not the answer to the question exactly, and also not a no on being abusive. Maybe she was afraid of Larry, or maybe he really was not abusive towards her. Who knows? Either way, she also gave them information on a vehicle that Larry could be driving. His vehicle is a red Dodge Charger. Obviously not the vehicle fleeing from the murder scene, but then she nonchalantly adds that he could also be using her vehicle because she left it at his house. It's a silver Ford Escape. Once again, obviously not the murderer's vehicle, but it's another vehicle he drives. They also got his phone number from her. And before detectives could call Larry, he called them. Apparently, Larry's ex-wife that just left the police station, soon as she got out the door, called Larry right away to tell him what was going on. Detectives believe Larry contacted them because he was kind of nervous. Detectives wanted Larry to come into the station to talk to them, but he told them that he was in Oklahoma City almost 2 hours away. So it was decided that Larry would drive back to Tulsa and meet with detectives, which, surprise, surprise, he didn't do. Larry eventually called them the next day to let them know that he would come to meet them the following Monday with his lawyer. Well, Monday came, and so did Larry with his lawyer. The lawyer advised Larry to remain silent, so Larry had nothing to offer the detectives. There was a warrant for Larry's DNA and fingerprints, so that is pretty much all detectives were able to get from him on this day. He was allowed to leave with his attorney. The police obtained Larry's phone records, and it proved he was in Oklahoma City at the time of the murders. Even after all this information, detectives were still skeptical of Larry. Another associate of Amanda said at one point during the year, an incident occurred between Amanda and Larry. Charges were filed against Larry, but since Amanda did not follow through, they were dropped, and because of this, Larry hired an associate of his to, quote, babysit Amanda. I'm thinking this might be the incident that Amanda was going to refile with the DA against Larry on, but our sources don't specify this. The associate, whose name was Dale, would sit outside Amanda's job and pretty much just follow her everywhere she went, and he would report everything back to Larry. Larry found out that Jennifer was trying to help Amanda with regaining custody of their child, so he threatened Jennifer, saying he had plenty of money and could hire someone to, quote, take care of both her and Amanda. Amanda's sister also said that he had threatened her family in the past over issues he and Amanda were having. Amanda's sister says she also wanted to let detectives know that wherever Larry was at the time of the murder, he and Amanda's daughter was not actually with him. She said the baby was with Larry's other ex-wife. When they contacted the other ex-wife, they learned that yes, the baby was with her and has been for a few days. But before that, the baby was with the first ex-wife, the one that had previously spoke to detectives and conveniently forgot to mention that, who brought the baby to her. Oh my gosh, what is going on here? How many ex-wives does this guy have? And why is the baby being passed around to all of them? So, the first ex-wife is the one that was at the police station giving the detectives a statement. And the second ex-wife is the one they called that currently had the baby at the time. Just in case you're a little confused about that. The surveillance footage finally came into the station. The cameras were overlooking the front entrance of the apartment complex, but it did not actually show the shooting take place. What the cameras did capture was the gold Pontiac pulling into the complex at around 7:55 a.m. The car backs into a spot near Jennifer's apartment, but due to the camera angle, the police could not see anyone getting in or out of the car. The car is then seen speeding off around 9:21 a.m. Police put out a bolo for the gold Pontiac right away. Meanwhile, the police decide that they want to look into Dale. Remember, Dale was Larry's so-called slave that would do anything for Larry. At the time of the murders, Dale Childress, a 56-year-old man, lived with Larry Douglas just outside of Tulsa. Dale did not fit the description of the shooter either, but they wanted to talk to him anyways, so they give Dale a call to get him to come in and talk to them. But Dale never answers, nor did he ever call back. Detectives received information about a benefits card Dale had and used often. They were able to obtain the records for the benefit card and found that it was used several times the night before the murder at a convenience store less than a mile from where the victims lived. Now, with this lead, investigators obtained the camera footage from the convenience store. And sure enough, there is Dale in high-resolution video going inside the store. But he was not alone. Larry was with Dale at least one of the times Dale was there during that day. The two men are seen leaving in a silver SUV. Detectives believe that Dale and Larry might have been scoping out the apartment, since it was a large complex, and they believe that Larry knew the two women lived there, but maybe didn't know which apartment they lived in. So now we go back to the gold Pontiac, and knowing that the car was stolen and possibly had evidence of the murder, detectives were eager to find it. The police believed that that car was more than likely abandoned by now. And wouldn't you know, they were correct. The car was abandoned and was spotted by another investigator on a different case 2 weeks later. It was found just 3 miles from the Bristol Park apartments, where the murders took place. The police did surveillance on the car for several hours just to make sure it was really abandoned. But after several hours, nobody came to get the car. So they looked inside, and what they saw was the inside of the car had been slightly burned. It appeared as though someone had tried and failed to burn the car, more than likely to get rid of any evidence left inside. Detectives searched inside the car. They collected a styrofoam coffee cup, napkins from a local convenience store, and candy wrappers and cigarette butts. The police collected the evidence, hoping that the cigarette butts contained the killer's DNA on them. That was pretty much just default, but what was more interesting to detectives was the napkins and styrofoam cup. They wanted to know exactly where this cup came from in hopes to get more information about the killer. They also went to the store where the napkins came from in hopes of getting security footage. Police searched area stores to figure out where the styrofoam cup was purchased from, and they got a hit. They tracked the cup to a local Fiesta Mart. It was a big clue for their investigation. Police requested surveillance footage from the stores. The surveillance footage from the store where the napkins came from showed a black man wearing a hoodie going into the store at around 6 a.m. the morning of the murders and purchasing the coffee in the same type of styrofoam cup found in the car. Or did he? The man did get a coffee, but he was not the one to actually pay for the purchase, which means he wasn't alone in the store. And with further review of the footage from outside the store, it shows that he didn't arrive there in the stolen vehicle either. In fact, he wasn't driving at all. The man in the store with him was the one driving. They were driving in a silver SUV again. This was fairly good evidence to connect the man in the video to the stolen car that was used in the murders. But who was the man driving the silver SUV? Investigators dug a little deeper to figure out this twisted situation, and what they came up with was they believed the other man in the store with the suspect was Larry Douglas. Yes, Amanda Douglas's husband, Larry Douglas. Now, if you're not getting confused yet, I don't know how, because I'm trying hard to keep up. The last we knew, detectives determined that Larry Douglas was in Oklahoma City at the time of the murders. And he was at the time of the murders, but at 6 a.m. that morning, Larry Douglas was at the Fiesta Mart in Tulsa with an unidentified man who is now connected to the stolen car that was used in the murders. With this new evidence, detectives were becoming more and more skeptical about Larry Douglas. So police decided to go back to the video surveillance from the first store that had shown Larry and Dale together to see if they could connect this unidentified man with Dale as well. And sure enough, at a different time the night before, Dale is seen walking into the store with this unidentified man right behind him. Detectives decided to go to Dale's phone records to see what calls he might have been making and to whom. The detectives came up with a few interesting calls to and from Dale's phone, but one number was sticking out to them the most. So they decided to run the number through Facebook, and wouldn't you know, they get a hit, and fast. The person the number belonged to was that of 25-year-old Quantel Alverson. After pulling up his records, they found that Quantel had previously spent 4 years in prison for attempted robbery and assault with a dangerous weapon. Detectives believe this could be their shooter and the person driving the gold Pontiac because he fits the witness's description to a T. They put a lineup together to show the witnesses in hopes of getting a positive ID. And they got their positive ID. The witness positively identifies Quantel Alverson as the person who allegedly shot Amanda and Jennifer that morning. They go back to headquarters and get to work on issuing a warrant for Quantel. But it wouldn't be until around 6 weeks later that they find Quantel and arrest him. Detectives interrogate him and show him the evidence they had against him. And you can find this interview on the episode of The First 48 that we mentioned in the source material. Quantel is not giving up anything at all. He tells them that he does not know Larry or Dale, and he doesn't even know Jennifer or Amanda either. He also said he didn't kill anyone. But detectives have enough evidence to charge him with the murders. Plus, their DNA evidence came back on the cigarette butts, and it matched Quantel. Now, they wanted to still find Dale and see what he has to say, because even though Larry was not the shooter, detectives still believe that he was the mastermind in the murders and may have paid Quantel Alverson to kill the two women. So they just wanted to get a statement from Dale or find out what information he knew. It seemed as though Dale had just gone MIA. They went back to Larry's and Dale's house and checked out a few other places in hopes of finding him, but they came up with nothing. Dale was nowhere to be found. Then about a month or so later, detectives get a tip about Dale. You see, early one morning, a woman on her way to work was driving down a street just outside of Wichita, Kansas, and went past what she thought was a person laying on the side of the road. So she called 911 to report it. When police arrived at the scene, they found a man dead on the side of the road. The man had been shot 3 times in the face and once in the back. The man was quickly identified as Dale Childress. This was not the way detectives hoped to find Dale, but they figured it was a setup by Larry, somehow to keep Dale from talking to them. The only thing missing was the connection between Dale and Larry to Wichita. The only good evidence detectives in Wichita came up with at the scene was a distinct set of tire marks left there near the body. Then a tip came into the police in Wichita that someone might know a person connected to Dale and possibly Larry as well. The CI told detectives they needed to look into a guy that goes by the name Pops. The detectives identified Pops as 54-year-old James Marshall. When they went to talk to James at his house just outside of Tulsa, detectives noticed a red Dodge Charger parked in his driveway. And they said, well, doesn't Larry Douglas drive a red Dodge Charger? According to his ex-wife, he does, and there is one that is registered to him in Oklahoma. So yeah, why is Larry's red Dodge Charger outside of Mr. Marshall's house? Well, after doing some research, they found out that the Charger was Larry's, and a witness said they saw James driving the Charger, but never said they saw Larry anywhere at all. When detectives asked the witness why they thought that James was driving Larry's red Charger, they said they thought it was because something happened to James's car recently. During the interrogation of James about the murder of Dale, he admitted to knowing both Dale and Larry and said he was in the Wichita area the day Dale was murdered, but they didn't actually have enough evidence to arrest him for anything to do with the murder. Detectives were getting really frustrated, and with good reason. They had a lot of dead people. They had some pretty good evidence, but they only had a few suspects that were all connected to Larry, but no one would even attempt to implicate Larry in anything. So now detectives were trying to figure out why James may have been driving Larry's car and what happened to James's own car, because it was nowhere to be found. It was a green Buick LeSabre. James also could not give detectives a good reason as to why his car was missing, or where it was, and why he needed to drive Larry's car. They wanted to find James' green Buick because they think that it may have evidence that will show James was involved in the murder of Dale. Detectives found a relative of James that had some good info, connecting James to not only Dale but also to Larry. This evidence was good enough to keep detectives pushing to connect James to the murder of Dale. 2 more weeks would pass without any more clues. Then, just when detectives were losing hope, they get a call that changes everything. A car was found burned in Dallas, Texas, and this time it was burned really good. The car was a Buick that came back to James Marshall. They also had info that put James in Dallas a couple of days after Dale was murdered. Detectives tried to get anything they could from the burned car, but it was destroyed. What they were able to get was the tire impressions from the Buick. This was going to be important if they could match these tires to the marks left at the scene where Dale was found dead. And sure enough, it was a match. So, James Marshall was arrested and charged with Dale's murder. Detectives still believe that Larry was the mastermind behind all these murders, but just could not prove the connection, mainly because no one was talking. They did surveillance and raids on Larry and his house and other places that he is known to have frequented because of his alleged drug dealing and other issues that he had, other things that he did. But they could still not come up with anything to link Larry to any of the murders during any of this. Detectives were frustrated. They just knew Larry was involved and said they will not stop until they can finally prove it. Detectives in Tulsa received word from the FBI that they were investigating Larry, but not for anything to do with any murders. It was for dealing drugs and racketeering. They wanted to work together with the FBI and Tulsa detectives to try and put all the information that everyone had about him together and at least try to get Larry off the streets, if not anything. So that is what they did. The Tulsa detectives and the FBI put all their facts about Larry together to try to build a good case against him, even if it was for something besides the murders of Jennifer and Amanda. And then, just like most criminals end up doing, Larry eventually slipped up and gave the FBI and Tulsa detectives all they needed to get him off the streets. A news article from News on 6 Tulsa says, an affidavit filed with the U.S. District Court in Tulsa, a special agent with the FBI states that Larry O. Douglas, Jr. has been under investigation for multiple crimes, including drug trafficking and racketeering, witness intimidation, and murder. A witness to Douglas's criminal activities, whom Douglas also used to conduct some of his alleged crimes, told the FBI agent that Douglas would threaten and physically beat her to scare her away from cooperating with law enforcement. The affidavit mentions several instances of Douglas intimidating, threatening, or physically harming the witness. The witness said that Douglas threatened to kill her and her family if they provided information to law enforcement. To reinforce the threat, the witness said Douglas showed her a video of her own minor child getting off of a school bus and told the witness that he had eyes everywhere. The witness also told the agent that at one point Douglas told her she, quote, knows too much to get out now. The affidavit also states that the witness once found a piece of paper with a list of phone numbers on it. When the witness tried to keep the paper in hopes of providing it to law enforcement, Douglas got angry, grabbed her by the throat, and punched her in the face multiple times. The agent also says that when the witness asked Douglas about the murder of his wife Amanda, he responded by having her read a news article about the murder investigation and told the witness, quote, that is who you are dealing with. Tulsa police say Douglas is still under investigation for the murder of his wife in 2014. However, no charges have been filed in the case at this time. And the United States Attorney, Trent Shore, stated in an article on the justice.org webpage, quote, drug trafficking and violent crimes are tearing away at the fabric of our society. Kingpins like Larry Douglas can wreck communities. Drug organizations destroy families by facilitating substance abuse and addiction problems. Larry Douglas sold methamphetamine, crack cocaine, powder cocaine, and marijuana in Northeast Oklahoma. His organization utilizes fear and violence as tools of the trade. We are all safer with Larry Douglas in federal prison. I am thankful for the collaborative efforts of the Oklahoma and Kansas investigators, as well as the FBI, who joined forces to take down this criminal enterprise. Larry went to trial and in 2018 was sentenced to 21 years in federal prison. Larry pleaded guilty to charges of witness intimidation and continuing a criminal enterprise, or what is known as the Kingpin statute. He admitted to running a marijuana and cocaine trafficking ring and ordering someone to, quote, take care of an associate of his who was later murdered. This being Dale Childress, who was murdered by James Marshall. In the Tulsa World article, it says, quote, Douglas, in his plea agreement, recounted his plans for Childress after he became concerned that he, quote, knew too much about Larry's drug trafficking operation and had fallen behind on payments for drugs. He also wrote in his plea, I told James Marshall that Dale was effed up and directed Marshall to take care of it. He also wrote, I manufactured crack in Tulsa at various locations and arranged for cocaine and marijuana to be obtained in California or Texas and shipped or transported to Tulsa, Douglas said in his plea. So he is admitting to doing some things. And he's admitting to doing this because he knows that if he admits to some stuff, that they might look past some other things, right? But that's not always true. Even if this is the excuse Larry used as to why he wanted Dale Childress, quote, taken care of, it's my opinion that there is much more than that to the story. Larry pleading guilty or admitting to the lesser offenses is getting him off for now, but the investigation is not over. The two others, Quantel and James, are still alive and could possibly incriminate Larry in all three murders, Amanda, Jennifer, and Dale. If, and that's a big if, they wanted to. Why they don't, I don't know. I mean, they're already in prison and will be there for most of their lives, if not all of it. As of today, Larry Douglas has never been charged with anything to do with the murders of Amanda, Jennifer, or Dale. Quantel Elverson was found guilty and was sentenced in 2016 to 2 life sentences without parole for the murders of Amanda Douglas and Jennifer Sudar. James Marshall, in 2016, took a plea deal and pleaded guilty to second-degree reckless murder and was sentenced to 16 years in prison for the slaying of Dale Childress. So that's the end of our story, but I just want to talk a little bit about this because it's so twisted and so scary to think that there's just people that have so much control over other people that they would actually be able to sit there and tell someone, go take care of this person or go take care of that person, and somebody would actually commit murder, risk their lives, and for what? For some drugs, for a little bit of money? It just doesn't make sense to me why somebody would do this for somebody else. And if Larry wanted all these people, quote, taken care of, why didn't he just do it himself? Because he knows what would happen if he did it himself. He knows that he would be in jail for the rest of his life. And he has 21 years to be in jail. 21 years could be the rest of his life. We don't know. We don't know when anybody's going to die or anything like that. But also, after these 21 years, what's going to happen? And if he doesn't serve the whole 21 years, he's going to end up being out back on the streets. He's going to end up probably doing the same things he has always done, because it sounds to me like that's pretty much all he knows. That's the only way of life that he knows. And that's sad to think about for many reasons. But it's sad and it's scary because he is going to be out on the streets doing the same things again to more people. And there's probably, unfortunately, going to be more deaths. I mean, this witness, she is probably has to be away from the area, because now he knows that this witness testified against him and said all of these things. Like, holy crap, that's scary. Like, you can't be anywhere. Like, I wouldn't want anybody to know anywhere where I was at all because of that. I mean, obviously they know. Look what happened to Amanda. Look what happened to Jennifer. And Jennifer really didn't have anything to do with it. And then look what happens to Dale. All Dale was doing was what Larry said. But because Larry obviously didn't trust him, as much as Dale thought he did. He had Dale killed because he was scared that maybe Dale might slip up and say something to someone or to detectives, and Larry wasn't going to have that, obviously, right? And so did he even pay James to do this, or did he just tell James, hey, you go do this, and James is like, okay, yeah, I'll go do it? Who knows, right? Who knows? And then with Quantel, like, obviously it just looks so, I don't want to say dumb, but it is kind of dumb on Quantel's part. Like, obviously, hello, why don't you just tell the truth? Why don't you just tell detectives, tell somebody that Larry was the mastermind of this? I mean, even if he does tell, it's not going to probably change any of his sentences, his convictions or anything. I mean, obviously, we know he was the one that actually did it and went up and shot those ladies and killed them. But, you know, it could make a difference for somebody else. Because obviously we know that it wasn't his idea. Why would Quantel have this idea and want to just go kill these two ladies that supposedly he didn't even know? He didn't rob them or take anything from them. He didn't, he didn't do anything or see them anywhere else to where something could have happened that he would want to just kill these innocent ladies. And plus, he sat there and waited for like an hour and a half for them to come out of the house so he could kill them. So obviously we know that it wasn't his idea to do this. It just couldn't have been. The reasons are just not there to convince me that he just wanted to go up to these women and shoot them just because. Or he was just waiting for two women to come out of their house just because. But he was also seen with Larry. He is an associate of Larry. Yeah, no. This just doesn't make sense. I just don't get it, my friends. I just don't get it. But this is why we do stories like this. This is why we tell about these cases and, just to kind of help with looking out for people like this, and being aware and just kind of helping to watch our own backs, because you just never know. Honestly, you just never know. These ladies did not know when they woke up that morning that when they walked out of the house to get in their car to go to work, that somebody was going to come out and shoot them and kill them. And it's so sad. It really is so sad. And I pray for the families of Jennifer and Amanda and Dale, for that matter, because he didn't know either that this was going to happen to him. He probably thought he was going on a drug run with this James Marshall guy up in Wichita for whatever reason. And, then all of a sudden, boom, he's dead too. So, but we'll move on to the next story and next case, friends. And I hope you enjoy this one. Thanks for listening. As always, I'm Gigi. We love you. And thank you again.